This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 295, Hypnotic Language Hacks.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. And for those of you that are listening to this on the release date, you might have noticed we're coming out 2 days early. How about that? So for the last 6.5 years, this program for nearly 300 episodes, millions of downloads around the world, has been coming out consistently on Thursday. However, there's a really good reason this is releasing on Tuesday, October 20th. Because tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the release date, tomorrow, Wednesday, October 21st, a brand new program is launching. Hypnotic Language Hacks. You know your business can change people's lives, but you don't yet have the right words to inspire them to take action. Well, imagine the changes you can create in your business with a few subtle strategies of hypnotic language hacks. So this is a program that's actually built for people who are entrepreneurs, business owners, solopreneurs, people who do online marketing. So it's all about taking the principles of hypnotic applications into the business world. And I wanted to take this week's episode to give you a bit of a preview, which, by the way, if you head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/295, that'll be the show notes for this specific episode. And we're going to do something really cool there, because the beauty of podcasts, as well as the downfall of podcasts, is that there's not like one specific platform that everybody listens to them on. So for example, I've got an iPhone and that just comes with a podcasting app, and that's what I listen on. But then again, there's a different app on Android. And then again, there's other platforms like Spotify. There's other platforms. Oh, there's so many of them. And even to the fact that this program, the new one, Hypnotic Language Hacks, is also going out as video in addition to audio. So on that page, worksmarthypnosis.com/295 will give you the links to everywhere that you want to be subscribed to so you can get all the episodes. Because, backstory, rewind us back to sometime, I believe around June 2014, 6 years ago. I can do math in my head. That's where the trending advice at the time was to release your podcast with 3 episodes. And if you could, do a solo episode to kind of introduce yourself, maybe do a teaching episode, and then maybe do a guest episode. And I kind of broke that mold with Work Smart Hypnosis because episode number 1 was solid teaching. It was the all positive pre-talk. And then episodes 2 and 3 were Michael Elner and Sean Michael Andrews. Michael Elner actually was a bit of an inspiration in terms of the entire Work Smart Hypnosis brand because of a quote of his, which was wrongly attributed, and it turns out it was Scott Sandland, who said, learn from people who disagree with each other. And that was the whole mindset of that. So Hypnotic Language Hacks is going to be even further different because we're not launching with 3 episodes. No, we've been at work launching 10 episodes. And let me take this time here with you to give you a preview of the 10 titles that are coming out. And Work Smart Hypnosis will continue on Thursdays in audio format. And Hypnotic Language Hacks is going to be coming out on Wednesdays. It's going to be coming out on Wednesdays each and every week, both in video and in audio format. That's going to be hosted over at the brand spanking new jasonlinett.com website. And as I like to say over there, do not worry about the spelling of my name. I own all of the misspellings. Type in the closest you can guess, and that's going to bring you to the right place. Though if you've been around me enough, Linett, 1 N, 2 T's, no E at the end, 6 letters, Linett. Can you tell I've spelled that enough times in my life? jasonlinett.com. That's where all the podcasts of Hypnotic Language Hacks are going to be hosted. So let me run you through the first 10 episodes, which I'd encourage, head over right now and hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Hit subscribe over on YouTube and you'll get the alerts as those new episodes drop. You can actually listen right now to a trailer episode. Again, we are putting this podcast out on Work Smart Hypnosis 1 day early. This way you can already be subscribed and they'll automatically get loaded in. So here we go. Episode number 1 is Welcome to Hypnotic Language Hacks. Seems like a good place to begin. Episode number 2 is Why Learn Business from a Hypnotist, which that's really my backstory, though, as you listen to that specific episode over on the new program. I teach a strategy of universalizing your message. So this is actually a good lesson to be learned by the hypnotist, that sometimes we may make use of such a specific metaphor that it may not align with our client. And if you could find a way to kind of throw in 2 or 3 sentences to universalize your story, now you get a bigger hit, you get a bigger win, and it becomes even more effective inside of your process. So really, even though episode number 2 of the new program is really my origin story, my backstory, it's also a bit of a teaching lesson in terms of how to universalize a story. And again, keep in mind that most of the audience of the new program are people that these hypnotic concepts are brand new to. So that's where I'm introducing that to them over there. Episode number 3, Hypnotic Language Hacks, is cause and effect for business influence. Basically a preview, a bit of a crash course in pacing and leading, and exactly how that applies over to business. When I decided to launch this program, the new one, I, in my head, had one person in mind to be the very first guest on the program. And actually, as I went through both of his podcasting training courses that he put out, even in his training, he actually said, don't make it a point to get a big name guest for your first podcast episode, because surprisingly, as much as this person who I'm about to reference has had people on his program ranging from big name actors and actresses, Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, he goes, the episodes with his students get the most downloads because those are the people that people can best align with. Though I purposefully broke his advice because Pat Flynn, host of The Smart Passive Income, who to date has more than 60 million downloads of his podcast all around the world. One of the biggest names in podcasting, someone who really helped to set the foundation of it. And as I will say in the intro of that episode, borrowed one word from Pat as inspiration. He's smart passive income, and I'm work smart hypnosis. So we modeled one word, and the basic template of the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast is very much in alignment with the basic template of what his program used to be. We're breaking a new format in for Hypnotic Language Hacks. Yet I decided to go against his advice of don't go for the big guest as the first one, because there's a specific angle of his story that I wanted people to hear. And it's why I was a follower and still am of his stuff. So it's all about building an audience before even making an offer. So rather than being that person who pops up and goes, here's what I have to sell you, he was in a market where really it was, hey, let's all figure this out together. And that is an incredible episode to listen to. I've already gone back and listened to that episode twice since it's been edited. And wow. So episode number 4 is Powerful Communities with Pat Flynn. Keeping the momentum going, episode number 5 of the new program is the number 1 mistake people make in business. So that episode is all about relationships, kind of continuing that community theme from the previous episode. So episode number 5 is the number 1 mistake people make in business. And it comes back to, again, that theme of building rapport, building relationships, and building value, even before asking for someone to take the next step and go into a specific product. Episode number 6, which again, make sure you're subscribed on the favorite podcasting platform, even on YouTube. This way, if you're listening to this on Tuesday as this episode releases, that's going to make it so all the episodes go directly into your library immediately. That's going to make it even easier for you. The reason I do that, just as a side note, at least on Apple Podcasts, if you subscribe to a new program, it'll go in and download the most recent 3. But if you're already subscribed right now, it's going to make the first 10 automatically load for you. So episode number 6 introduces shifting tonality for business influence. So what we know as hypnotists in terms of tonality going up is a question, tonality going down is command, and tonality on an even plane is a statement, the way we can make use of conversational postulates for influential impulse. That episode actually came about because that was a switch in terms of my tracking. Episode number 4, I told the quick anecdote about a student of mine going through some of my business content, and he goes, that was one of my biggest breakthroughs. And I'm listening to that going, that's the easiest thing we do. And yet, remember, the stuff you find easy is someone else's major breakthrough. So I shuffled the docket and put that as episode number 6. Episode number 7 is one that I believe a lot of you as hypnotists are going to definitely want to hear. The Business of Story with Park Howell. So when I put out the book Work Smart Business, I was on Park's program back when that came out and just really connected with him, really has an interesting message, and really has some really cool frameworks. Really has some great frameworks of storytelling for business. In fact, he just unleashes those frameworks, several of them on the podcast, episode number 7 of Hypnotic Language Hacks, and really getting into the nature of the storytelling aspect of how we can define our brand, how we can set the foundation for our business. He tells an incredible story of doing consulting for a car dealership that was actually having a bit of a problem in terms of financing, and changed their messaging and just truly turned their customers into raving fans of what they do. For all of you in the Work Smart Hypnosis world, let me tell you why Park Howell stuck in my head and I went, I gotta have him on the program. It was not about what happened when I was on his program back last year. It was, we wrapped up the recording. I was talking about hypnotic principles for business. That was the theme of my book, Work Smart Business. And at the end of it, he goes, hey, that went really well. That was great. You know, I had a conversation with a hypnotist previously and we just did not mesh well. To which I had to go, what happened? And buckle up, people. Oh, let's ruffle some feathers here. He goes, yeah, we were having a conversation and I mentioned a question about what it's like when you're under hypnosis. And this guy just flipped his lid and was just like, we don't call it under hypnosis. That's a pejorative term. That means they're under someone's control or under someone's power. And just, we were having a good conversation. And suddenly this stranger was reprimanding me that I said the wrong thing. Hey folks, doesn't that sound familiar? Haven't we been told that as well? To which I responded to Park. It's like, well, I see the point of that. But then again, in my world, as the business owner, as the practitioner, we're meant to be the chameleon. You know, use their words, use their themes, use their neurological patterns. So I always go back to the example of, here's a client who was in my office for weight loss, and it's the second appointment. And he goes, man, that was incredible last week. You know, while I was under hypnosis, I don't think I've ever felt that relaxed. And I mean, this week, the snacking's been gone. I haven't had a single cocktail. The scale says I'm already down 7 pounds. So do you see the foot was in the door, people? Do you see he was already a raving fan of the process? So think back to Park's story of the practitioner suddenly reprimanding the layperson that they used the wrong term. When in my client example, while I was under hypnosis, here's all the cool stuff that happened. So how do you think I responded? Well, today, while you're under hypnosis, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Sound good? Why? Because the fact that he used those words informed me that he was comfortable with that. So don't be that person who corrects them. Okay, I'll get off the soapbox now. On to episode number 8, Hypnotic Language Hacks, is persuasive questions for business influence. So this is kind of getting into what we know as the chunking down and chunking up model in terms of meta model questioning, but more strategically how that applies to business and understanding exactly where we ought to be inside of our business communication. Episode number 9 is Not Yet Motivated, Do This. So that's where I start to break down some of the myths and misconceptions of motivation. How do we trick out our neurology to get into an ideal productive state of mind? How do we become much more productive and effective at what we do? And actually running people through that specific experience of creating motivation on demand. And then final episode of the initial launch, episode number 10. Which, by the way, all of these will be on YouTube. They'll have closed captions. There's going to be full transcriptions in the show notes over at jasonlinett.com. Some of them have some sort of content upgrades attached to them. Episode number 10 is 4 persuasive video hacks that sell. So again, the audience for Hypnotic Language Hacks are people specifically looking to grow their business. People who are looking for strategies to become more effective, more influential, and more ethically persuasive at what they do, and sharing 4 things that I've tested that I've put into my videos, and many of my students as well, that have helped them out. So there you go. After that, we're back on Wednesday, October 28th on a regular schedule, a mixture of solo content as well as some really awesome guests coming onto that program too, and wanted to pop on here because for those of you that perhaps are looking to level up your business game, that's a great opportunity for you. And then again, many of you are just simply hypno hobbyists and perhaps have something else that you do full time. And this is where I wanted to create something that was a little bit more wider market in terms of applying our hypnotic language hacks to those communities. So head over to the show notes for this episode. It's worksmarthypnosis.com/295. That'll just redirect over to the show notes. And on that page, we will give you as many links as we can. This way, again, the joy of podcasting as it goes out to all sorts of different platforms. There'll also be a link to subscribe over on YouTube to get all the updates. And again, if you're listening to this on the release date on Tuesday the 20th, go ahead and do that right now. You can listen to the trailer, and this will make sure all 10 first episodes drop into your library. Jason Linett here once again, and I'll wrap up today's episode with a simple thank you to all of you. You know, it's where this was an idea back in early of 2014, and I loved the feedback of people going, oh, when you hit episode number 100, that's when I knew you were serious about this. And here we are a couple of weeks away from episode number 300. And openly, I'm still figuring out exactly what we're going to do for that episode. I've got some thoughts of exactly what we're going to do on that. And it's where along this journey, I know at times you've been learning from me. I love popping into different forums and seeing people in discussion and using these episodes as references. The fact that I can be at a conference like HypnoThoughts and people are signing up for other people's programs because they've heard them on my podcast. The message since day one is that the more that we're all successful, the more that we're all successful. And by doing that, that's how we help to really grow what we do and take our skills and talents and abilities and artistry even more mainstream, which is sort of the inspiration of this new project, this new brand, and everything over at the new JasonLinett.com. So once again, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/295. That's the easiest place to go right away. Hit subscribe as soon as you can. That'll make all the episodes drop. And even if you're listening after the fact, at that point, use the same links or just go directly over to jasonlinett.com. That's where you'll find everything. Get out there, make it rain.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at worksmarthypnosis.com.